It's been about a month since I released my super fast melee dungeon runner, Bloodthief, on Steam. It's time to answer the question, how did the launch go? Prior to launch, I managed to accrue over 100,000 wish lists, and so I did the absolutely unhinged and quit my job and went all in on this project. So, am I recording this video from my yacht in the Caribbean, or am I recording from a dumpster home rigged with internet, or something in between? I'll be talking all about it in this video. So as of the time of this recording, Bloodthief is sitting at a 96% positive on Steam right now, which is absolutely incredible to have worked on something for so long and then seeing that it's resonating with people. It's just the best feeling in the world, and I just couldn't be happier. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's left a good review. And let me tell you, that review score would be a whole lot lower if I wasn't quick to address some of the issues I'll be talking about in this video. The post-launch time has been extremely hectic. I do have some numbers to share later in the video, but for the most part, I would say that most of my time can be broken out into two separate buckets. The first bucket being bug fixes, and the second bucket being working on new features. So I want to start with bug fixes, because there's some funny ones in here. The first one, not funny. Mainly because it's the game literally not working. As it turns out, my release timing was really not so good because I happened to release Bloodthief during a time when there was a horrific AMD driver bug that was impacting a very specific subset of people with very specific AMD hardware that was basically causing any game made with the Godot engine to just straight up not work. Now, AMD actually was quick to fix this bug, but the issue is that now anybody who was running into this issue needed to do a driver update. And so there was just a small portion of players where when they opened up the game, it looked like this, which is not good. I actually did know about it before the launch, which was really great for my pre-launch anxiety. I did a post on Discord and on Steam basically warning users about it and telling them, hey, update your drivers and you'll be fine. But I mean, who am I kidding? I know nobody reads those things, so I actually frantically added an update a day after launch that basically detected if you had that bad driver and gave you a pop-up in the main menu saying, hey, are you seeing a weird bug right now? If so, update your drivers, please. Oh, also forgot to mention that Bloodthief has two different launch options. One is the default launch option, and the other is the DirectX option. The DirectX option worked fine. It was not impacted by this bug. So if anyone was running into this bug, they could launch with DirectX and they could play the game. Now, even with all the pre-launch warnings, even with the secondary launch option, still the game got some bad reviews because of this bug, but what are you gonna do? The other really bad bug that happened after launch was this one crash that was happening to a small portion of players that were using the DirectX launch option. It only happened on level 3-9, and I actually was able to reproduce it, thank God, basically by just playing like a maniac. I was able to fix the bug essentially just by toning down a bunch of the effects if the player is using the DirectX launch option. I don't know why, but for some reason DirectX can just handle less stuff than Vulkan. But yeah, turned down some of those particle effects and it made the crash go away. One last bug that I would classify as major was this weird Steam Cloud Sync issue where people would close the game and they would see something that looked like this. And as far as I know, it didn't actually matter which one you selected. I always told people to do your local save because that just seems safer to me, especially if you're only playing on one device. To this day, I actually still don't know what causes this issue. I do think I made it better by cleaning up a lot of Bloodthief save code. There were a lot of places where Bloodthief was actually like writing to the save file twice where it should have been writing once. Potentially that was confusing Steam. I don't know. It does seem to be a lot better than it once was, but I do see this issue pop up from time to time. So now I want to talk a little bit about optimization. A few users reported that the game was performing worse for them than the demo was, which made absolutely no sense because if anything, I had done a ton of optimizations since the demo that should have made it run better. It turned out there was actually one key change that I made since the demo that was actually pretty severe that I didn't notice because I've got a decent CPU. So the thing that I had implemented since the demo was something called object pooling, which is useful when you have a whole bunch of instances of the same object, like for example, projectiles or little blood giblet things. In a nutshell, object pooling is basically just pre-create all the projectiles, all the blood giblets, and kind of just like store them invisibly off to the side where no one can see them. And then when they're needed in the game, you just grab it from the object pool, place the object where it needs to go. instead of creating it from nothing right then and there, which can be expensive. This wasn't a necessary optimization for the demo because there's not a lot of levels where there's a lot going on in the demo, but in the full game, there's a lot of these kind of bullet hell-like levels where there's like projectiles and particle effects and all sorts of things happening all over the place. And so for the full game, object pooling is basically the only reason why some of those later levels are able to run at all at a stable frame rate. But I made one key mistake with my object pooling implementation that basically made it so those earlier levels that don't really need it run worse than the demo. Essentially, I forgot to turn off physics for objects that were in the pool. And so any object that was in the pool, even though it was invisible and out of play, was still causing a ton of load on the CPU. So easy fix, just turned off physics for objects in the pool, and that ended up being a huge optimization. Okay, so those were the major things. Lots and lots of minor bug fixes. There were a lot of places where geometry was just bad. Like, for example, lava that wasn't lava, or walls that would kill you, or little doors that you could squeeze through when you weren't supposed to. And yeah, just some immersion breaking stuff, which always sucks. Like, for example, you could see out of bounds in some places. There were some item descriptions that got completely foobarred. And yeah, just spend a lot of my time those first few weeks just really focusing on fixing all those immersion breaking things. Okay, that's enough talk about bugs. I also have been spending a lot of time this last month working on cool new features. One that I'm really happy with is the new mega leaderboard that combines all your scores from all the levels and ranks everyone by their average rank. The way I implemented this is pretty interesting, so I'm going to talk about it. So I've talked about this in other devlogs, but for those of you that don't know, I'm using Steam's leaderboard feature for Bloodthief's leaderboards, and Steam doesn't have the ability to make like a meta leaderboard that combines the values of other leaderboards. So I had to do it myself. Essentially, I've got a cron job running every night at like 2 a.m. that essentially pulls every single score from every single leaderboard, gets the average of every single user's score, and then reposts it to the global leaderboard one by one, because Steam also doesn't have any bulk updating tools, which is kind of insane in my opinion, but that's a topic for another day. So since this script only runs once per day, that means that the leaderboard only updates once per day. But I kind of like this actually. It kind of reminds me of the scene in the movies where the teacher posts the grade on the bulletin board at the beginning of the day and everyone's rushing to see what their grade is. I feel like it just creates excitement. I like it. I also implemented this badge feature where people who win these one-off competitions that I've been hosting on my Discord server, they get a little badge by their name, and I hope to do a few more of these, so these are fun. I also finally got around to adding the arachnophobia feature that I talked about in a prior devlog. Look at these little guys running around. And I finally got a chance to implement literally the most requested feature on the Discord, which is this custom blood color feature. I think it's dual purpose in that it's important for some people who, don't want to see a bunch of blood and gore for whatever reason. But also, come on, this is just awesome. Look at this. I got pink blood. Now I got green blood. Now I got... Ugh. I implemented this by changing the color of all the blood textures in the game from red to white, and then just tinting the color to be whatever color the user configured in the settings. But because now blood was white, I had to go through all the places in the game where there was blood already placed and just make sure that I manually tinted it to be red. Unfortunately, I missed a spot in the worst possible place, the king's bed. It's supposed to be like a dramatic scene where you discover the king has been killed, but now we got this. I ended up finding this like a week after I pushed this build to main, and it just makes me cringe every time I think of some player coming across the king for the first time and thinking, Blargus, you're a sick bastard. Okay, and last but not least, the main thing I've been working on post-launch, custom levels for Bloodthief is launching right now. If you're watching this video, it's out, and you can go on Steam Workshop right now and play some user maps. For those of you that don't know, this has actually been in beta for a while now, and I've been playing some of these maps on my stream. Look, there's my silly little face. And some of these maps are incredible. If you've been following my devlogs, you know this feature has been a long time coming. I basically built Bloodthief from the ground up to support this type of thing. Users now have the exact same tools that I use to make the maps for the main game, so the possibilities are just truly limitless, and you can make maps just like the ones in the game, probably even better, with keys, doors, dialogue, triggers, breakables, giant dramatic events and set pieces, and literally everything else that you could possibly see in a Bloodthief level. It's all there. And then downloading other people's maps is as easy as going on Steam Workshop and clicking a button. And as mappers have already demonstrated, I really would was only scratching the surface with these tools with the base games maps. Just in the beta, I've seen everything from these Kaizo super difficult maps to puzzle maps to these epic temples. Someone recreated the Bad Apple music video using the dialogue system. It's just incredible. And with Steam Workshop, folks can rate maps, leave comments, and creators can update them, take feedback. And then on my end, I'll be hosting competitions and map jams, including one going on right now. You can check the Discord for that. It's just gonna be crazy. I literally could not be more stoked for this feature. For people interested in playing maps, you just go on Bloodthief Steam Workshop, subscribe to the map you want to play, and then it'll show up on your workshop tab in the game. And for people that want to make maps, there's a link in the description which will link you to a guide on making custom maps for Bloodthief. By the way, the game is on sale right now for 20% off, so if you've been thinking about picking it up, there's never been a better time. Okay, so that was the fun part. Now for some pain. Post-launch nerfs and buffs. Let's talk about the buffs first, because those will be less controversial. Biggest thing was that basically every sword in the game got an air control boost a week or two after launch. A lot of the reviews were complaining about the lack of air control, and I kind of just realized that the game is more fun when you have more air control, so I caved and I just gave basically every weapon more air control. I was finding that the Dawn Blade was far too weak, so I gave it some starting blood. And here's a big one. This level, the Oak's Labor Bell, was proving to be an extremely big difficulty spike, which I knew it was. I knew it was going to be a big difficulty spike. This level is almost exactly right at the mid-game, and so I wanted it to be kind of this epic moment right in the middle of the game that ended in this big triumphant battle, but it proved to be a little bit too much. I actually saw Moist Critical playing this live, and this guy likes hard games, and I swear he was so close to rage quitting, and thank God he didn't, but that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, where I was like, all right, I need to fix this.
How did that miss?
So I basically added these additional launch pads all over the place in the level, which basically can help save you in a pinch, and that paired with the additional air control actually made the level feel way more fair in my opinion, but still a proper challenge.
If I keep hitting that fucking lava, I'm gonna have a conniption.
The other level that people were just hounding me for was 3-9, which is one of my favorite levels. You know, it's one of the last levels in the whole game, so I wanted it to be hard, but yeah, I think I went a little bit too far with that one. So I basically tuned this one to be a little bit easier by making these guys do less damage, which they're one of the main enemies in this level, so I think it makes a big difference. Okay, now for the controversial stuff. So the first nerf that I did in Bloodthief was with the toothpick, which is this dagger here. Its ability is a double jump, and essentially the double jump was just way too good. The toothpick works just like anything else in Bloodthief, where it aims to never ever slow you down. So when you hit the double jump button, it doesn't overwrite your upward velocity, which is how most games do it. It adds to it, which in most scenarios works great, looks super cool, feels good, but in some scenarios is completely busted. Which I know Bloodthief is supposed to be the game where you have these absolutely absurd movement abilities and you can do these crazy moves that break the game entirely, but not moves that take no skill whatsoever. So I toned down that double jump a little bit. The other big nerf that I did was with this weapon, the Life Harvester. Its ability is a directional dash that you activate when you attack. And within a couple weeks after launch, the Life Harvester was just dominating the leaderboards, basically holding the world record in most of the levels in the game. Which, that's no fun. In my opinion, it's way more fun to try to find the best tool for the job and figure out which weapon fits that level the best. And yeah, I was just getting a lot of feedback from a lot of players, basically just saying there's no reason to use any other weapon besides the Life Harvester once you get it. So I nerfed it by making that dash ability cost a little bit of blood. I knew this was going to be controversial. I knew not everyone was going to like this, but I also knew this is what was best for the game. It unfortunately led to a few more negative reviews, but hey, can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs. I am bitter though. Anyway, one huge downside of these nerfs was that now I've got these leaderboards full of times that are now impossible to get. At first I thought, okay, not a big deal. I will simply write a script that deletes any leaderboard time under a certain threshold submitted before the nerf that is using the Life Harvester. Steam has a web API for this type of stuff, so I figured I could have a script ready in just a few hours. I spent the morning writing the script, and then I realized Steam doesn't have an API method for deleting leaderboard entries. That's literally the D in CRUD. How do you guys not have a delete method? So because of that, I had to go in and manually delete all the invalid times by hand. which friggin' sucked. Hopefully, I never have to nerf anything ever again. I will say, I'm optimistic that I won't have to because the leaderboards are looking really quite diverse these days, with different swords being the meta in different levels, and it's just really satisfying seeing all the different swords showing up as top times now. Okay, that's all the game development stuff. Now, it's time to talk business. The vital question that any game dev asks themselves is, will this game make enough money so I can keep making games? And the answer to that question, in my case, is... yes, it did. It made enough money, folks. We did it. I'm gonna make another game. I don't have to crawl back to my old job quite yet. Yeah, as it stands right now, Bloodthief has sold just over 9,000 copies, and it's actually continuing to just sell, which is amazing. I was fully prepared for Bloodthief to just not sell any copies after, like, you know, the first week, but sales are just still coming in steadily every single day. And, you know, it could taper off tomorrow. I don't know. But for now, things are going good, and we're going to be able to make another game, folks. So I'm stoked. I'm not going to tell you what that game is at this time. I still don't really know what it is, since I'm still very much in Bloodthief mode, but I'm excited. So yeah, exciting times. All right, that's all for this video. Remember that Bloodthief is 20% off right now, so pick it up now while it's on discount. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.